Greetings from chess.com. I hope you all are enjoying the Comedians on Board All Stars event. The fascinating thing about this event is that you can see the maturity in their games when compared to Comedians on Board Season 1. All these stars have actually worked on their game, and you can see that improvement when you look at these games. So I thought instead of just doing a very plain roundup, I thought I would do something that could be instructional as well as entertaining. So I thought of acquainting you all with some chess terms so that you can then search these terms and maybe navigate your path on your own, read about them, so that it also improves your chess knowledge. I'm starting with this game between Angad Ranyal and Tanmay Bhatt, and here is the game. This is a position where black has just played queen c1 check and it is white to move, and in this position there are different options, and in chess we call them candidate moves. In a way, white can go king f2, white can go king h2, or white can play queen e1. So in chess, when your opponent gives you a check, you can either interpose a piece between the check like this with queen e1, you can run away from the check with king f2 or king h2, or you can capture the piece which is checking your king. In this case, the third option is not possible, so you are left with either queen e1 or moving the king. Now of course queen e1 is not correct because just queen takes e1, so now you are left with two choices, whether you want to play king f2 and king h2. I hope you have made the right choice. Now in decisions like this, it's important to evaluate a possible move from your opponent. This is what I call the MEMC approach, especially useful for beginners. Just when you are about to make a move like that, the move that you've chosen, that is MC, just try to think of one ME, that is one move that your opponent might do. Start with one, eventually you will get a hang of it. So I think in this position, if white had considered king f2, he would have been safe, but Angad played king h2, paving way for black to do a fork, and that is where I come with the second term. After candidate moves, this is a knight fork. So a knight fork, as the word implies, that knight is actually attacking two or more pieces. In this position, it's attacking queen and king, and one of them will die definitely. So if you move the king, and king has to move, there is no way to answer this check other than moving the king. So once the king moves, the queen is captured, and now this is called a discovered check, wherein you move your knight and give a check with the queen. So that was the game between Angad and Tanmay. There's another game between them, and which is very dramatic. I have this position for you, and take a moment to see what you would do as white. So here the theme or the term that I want to share is eliminating the defender, and it's very useful if you know this theme and also solve a lot of positions pertaining to this. If you go to chess.com/puzzles, and you can do custom training and then select eliminating the defender as your theme, and you can train on this particular theme. In this position, black has just played bishop d7, protecting the knight, but who is protecting this pawn on e5? It's the knight. So here Tanmay Bhatt plays bishop into c6, which I like very much, and after bishop into c6, white wins the pawn, knight takes e5. If black had to defend this, black had to find a move like knight d4, which is not so easy. The point being that after knight takes e5, black can fork with the queen, like black can attack two pieces simultaneously with the queen, and then after knight c7, queen e5, knight takes 8. This knight on a8 is Abhimanyu, it cannot come back, and black has good chances in this position. For example, after knight g4 and bd7, black will soon pick up the knight and have a decent game. Okay. Alright, let me go to the next game. The next term here is Armageddon. So in this position, Tanmay Bhatt won on time, though he was a queen down. But in an Armageddon game, it's a situation in which a result is inevitable. You will get a result, but white will have slightly more time than black, and white is supposed to win at any cost. If black manages to draw the game, he still wins. So that is how Armageddon is staged. And in this position, he went on to win. I'm just going to come to another point where there was a discovered check, but it was not of great use. In this position, Tanmay played knight d5, and it's a discovered check. the king has to move. So here is a question for you to think about. Which is one thing that all pieces that can do but the queen cannot? Think about this. Alright, now let me go on to the next one, that is initiative. So this is a game between Anirban Dasgupta and Samay Raina. There you go. That's Anirban, who has also won Comedians on Board once, and here there is also Samay Raina. So what I liked about this game is that Anirban went boldly with the Smith-Morra Gambit, and I have covered some traps featuring this opening, which I recommend that you all study. The point of this gambit is that white gives up a pawn at the cost, and then white gives up a pawn but gets some initiative, or let's say activity, in return. So very rarely we find players taking the gambit. You know, in fact, even in the Title Tuesdays, I actually play this, and I'm very excited when somebody accepts this. But most of them, they either play d3 or knight f6. But that was very brave of Samay Raina, who captured the pawn on c3, and they reached this position after knight d7. So white has a temporary advantage, and once Chinit said that when you have a temporary advantage, you must seek the initiative, otherwise you risk losing it. So when there is temporary advantage, you have to try to threaten every move. Threaten, it could be a check, capture, threat, or attack your opponent's pieces, and this is where I think Anirban went wrong. He should have played e d6, which is a capture, and after bishop d6 do a threat, attacking the bishop, continuing the initiative, not giving black a chance to breathe. So this is something you must remember, especially when you have sacrificed the pawn in games like Morra Gambit. So after rook d1, if black goes bishop c7, white can go knight g5 and consider all kinds of tactics on f7 and e6. I think this would have given Anirban a very good chance, and I must really appreciate the fact that he opted for Morra Gambit. And if I were Anirban's coach, I would also have recommended the same against Samay Raina. It's a very clever choice. Kudos to his coach. Alright, then let me go on to the next game. So here also we see, this is again a game between Samay Raina and Anirban. But I really liked how Samay Raina has developed all his pieces and is now about to connect his rooks. So if you look at one of the videos I made pertaining to the do's and don'ts of chess openings, you can see that Samay has developed all his pieces and he has some control over the center and is also threatening something already. Now in this position, black had to play a6 to question this bishop because white had a threat. But he did not, he played queen d6. I am giving you a moment to see what you would do as white. It is based on the themes that I have covered already. So maybe take a moment to see what you would do as white. Okay, I'm going to reveal the move now. It's again eliminating the defender. We have 1 and 2 attackers and black has 2 defenders. And if you eliminate one defender, you win the pawn. So Samay played bishop to f6. Very nice, very simple chess, but precise. If you don't play bishop f6 now, black is going to play rook at d8 and have a very nice game. So after bishop f6, rook f6, he played queen takes d5 check, and after king h8, he played queen takes c6, which was great. So after that, he had a decent position throughout and was never really in danger, and then went on to win the game. Next, I am coming to Joel's game. This is Joel versus Sumit. Joel is, as usual, quite confident with his game, and I have a feeling that that confidence is also coming from a lot of chess practice that he has done. And when I saw this game, I was fascinated by the technique. So that's the term I would like to give you. When you are in a winning position, when you are ahead in a game, there are 3 things you must keep in mind. Number 1, when you are ahead in material, try to exchange pieces, because then ultimately you will be an advantage and you will be able to show that advantage, because as the game progresses towards an end game, your advantage can be maximized. Number 2, when you are ahead in material, don't relax, but try to find a weakness to attack, because let's say when you have 3 forces and your opponent has 2 forces, no matter which weakness you choose, you will always be ahead while attacking a weakness. And number 3, try to apply prophylaxis. So these are 3 things to keep in mind when you are ahead in development. And I really liked how Joel in this game shows how to play well in positions where you are ahead in material, and that is coming from a game in the competence on board, which is great in itself. So kudos to Joel. After 97, you see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, white has 8 pawns, whereas black has a few, let's say black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That means white is 2 pawns ahead, but it's very important that you convert this advantage very well without giving any play. First, Joel goes c takes d5, and after e takes d5, he sees that rook c2 and rook into e2 both are threatened, so he plays knight c3, he develops a piece, and after knight f6, the technique here is to try and exchange a lot of pieces and maybe create a passer on the queen side. And this is what he does. He plays rook a c1, doubles the rook on the c line, and then goes on to exchange pieces. So he knows his technique well, which I really liked. So this is what I was talking about, that there is certain maturity in their games now, and it's amazing to see how well they have improved in a short period. Okay, and then number 2, he has found a weakness. He is not relaxing. He knows that the d5 pawn cannot be protected by another pawn, which is an isolated queen pawn, can be further attacked, and now this rook has to assume the role of a passive rook because the pawn has to be defended. But after hg3 and then rook e8, Joel was able to win another pawn, and then he went on to clinch the game. So that was remarkable. Next, this is again a game between Sumit and Joel, and here I want to show you a concept which is quite common at spin. So in this position, black, it's your turn. What would you do as black? Can you pin? Okay, this is the move, bishop b4. It's pinning the knight. What this means essentially is that the knight on c3 cannot move, because then it would be illegal. So this is an absolute pin. The king cannot move, the knight cannot move, and there is also a threat that comes at this comes with this pin. Who is supporting the bishop? It is the knight, right? But what if you pin the knight? Then the bishop cannot be protected anymore. So in this position, the bishop had to take care of itself with bishop f3, or the queen had to protect it. But in this position, Sumit played knight e2, protecting the knight, but it really doesn't do much, as black can now capture the piece. Dun, 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 knight takes e4, and it's a clear piece up for Joel, and then he went on to win the game. Again, very nice, I think. You see, he knows that he has to complete the development, and he does that. And usually I tell my students to connect the rooks before move 16 or between 12 to 16, and connect and castle before 12 moves or 8 to 12 moves. He has done all of that, and really happy to see Joel improving his chess. Alright, now I am coming to the next game between Vaibhav Sethia and Biswa Kalyan. Yeah, there you go, Biswa versus Vaibhav. There was a lot of drama in this game, and I really was happy to see some of these moments. So now coming to that game. So this is a game in which Vaibhav was white and Biswa was black, and Biswa Kalyan played the Caro-Kann, and he actually sacrificed a piece here. After queen b6, c5, he gave a bishop to c5, which was not really necessary, but he went with it. And I'm coming to a critical position after knight c5, and in this position you see black's pieces are all coming towards the white king, and it's a very pressure situation. And I really liked how Vaibhav handled this very calmly. When you are defending a position, one of the things you must remember is to keep this in mind, that you have to neutralize the pressure in the position by either exchanging or pushing your opponent's pieces away. And with the help of this exchanging offer, Vaibhav was able to push the pieces of Biswa slowly, and that is what I liked. He played king f1 first, getting away from the king pin, because he realized that knight d3 is coming, so he played king f1. Better move was bishop d4, because then after knight d3 check king f1, you are preventing queen f2 mate. So king f1 was played, and after knight e4, now you see knight g3 check is threatened, queen f2 mate is threatened, and even in this position, bishop d4 would have helped, but bishop e1 is also good, I think. And after bishop e1 castles, he played knight c3, got his piece into the game, which was really not doing much. It was sleeping on b1. And then after f6, he played knight takes e4, bishop e4, and then again try to push this queen away because it's annoying to have your opponent's queen on e3. And then after queen f4, he doesn't stop. He then invites another trade with queen c1, pushing the queen even further. And after queen f5, he plays g4 and then knight h4, making sure that the queen is far away from the king. I really liked how Vaibhav was able to find all these moves and was able to defend well in this game. He ultimately went on to win the game. Next, I am coming with the next game which Biswa played against Vaibhav. So Biswa Kalandra played the London system, and they are already learning new lines, and it's good to see that Vaibhav had something prepared against it. He employed the King's Indian setup against the London, and black usually goes for this e5 break. So after some moves, it turned out that after rook ac8, black is actually very much ahead in the game. This knight on b7 is unprotected, and in a game, let's say in an equal game, if you are able to get your rook to the 7th rank, it's very useful. So they say that if you get your rooks on the 7th rank, that's the heaven for the rooks. The reason why they say that is because the rooks can be very menacing on the 7th rank, can put a lot of pressure on the opponent. And here Biswa Kalyana played rook d7. Now this is not the best move in the position, but I just wanted to tell you that having your rook on the 7th rank can be very useful. And it can provoke your opponent to make mistakes because the rook on the 7th rank is often annoying. And in this position, black would have parried all the threats by just seeing what is supporting what. For example, who is supporting this knight? It's the rook. And who is supporting the rook? Nobody. So if you attack this rook with a piece which is lesser than the rook, then maybe this rook has to move and then you can pick up the knight. So by that logic, knight f6 could have been better. So here, if you see that the rook is supporting the knight, if that's the idea, you must try to find what's the drawback of that idea. The drawback of this idea is that the rook can be pushed away. So a simple move like knight f6 could have chased this rook away and then increased the chances for black. But after rook d7, Vaibhav played rook c7. Now again, it's a good moment for you to figure out what you would do as white. If white had used the CCTP approach, I think white would have got the piece, and actually he did get this. I just saw, yeah. So he has already employed the, if you employ the CCTP approach, you will find the best move in the position. Yeah, there are no good checks in the position, but there is a capture. So here, if you take rook takes c7, you are actually eliminating a defender. How many pieces are supporting the knight? It's the queen and the rook, 2 pieces. So you eliminate one defender by capturing c6. You're not only capturing a piece, but you're supporting your own piece on b7. So that was a nice moment. And in this game, there was a mouse slip. I think at this moment after rook d2, Biswa made a mouse slip, and Vaibhav showed a great sportsmanship here by agreeing to, like, he said that okay, let's put rook d6, rook d1 and then continue from where we left off, and they continued the game. And in this position there was a moment in which black, that was Vaibhav, missed a mate in one. And just yesterday, Srinath was playing the title Tuesday, and his opponent had a chance to checkmate in one, but he offered a draw. And before his opponent could make the move, Srinath accepted that draw offer and escaped, and he actually went on to top in the title Tuesday. So he was one of the players who got 8.5 yesterday. So yeah, so this backrank mate is also a common theme which you can remember. It's the one way to prevent backrank mate is to provide a luft for a king. In this position, white has this luft with h3, but it's not enough because of this bishop. So you should have gone g3. If you had g3 in this position, then white could go king g2. But yeah, a point to remember, a lot of players make this mistake, so watch out for backrank mates. Alright, now I am coming to Samay Raina's game against Vaibhav Setyam, so let's get that. There you go. Samay, in this game that I have, Samay was white and he employed the English opening, to which Vaibhav brought a Dutch flavor. And in this position, e4 is usually what's played, but he went e3 and it was very fine play. I felt that both the players were at their best at many moments in this game. I really liked how Vaibhav was able to play back-to-back good moves. For example, in this position, e4 was a very strong move, opening the eyes of this bishop, and then queen a5 very soon, taking advantage of the knight. Now in this position, after ef3, queen a5, king d2, black has to open the position, and if you see checks, there are no good checks. Captures, not much. Threats, you can threaten, but better than threat in this position is a pawn break. That is the importance of pawn break. b5 opening the position so that the rooks can also come into the game. The pawn on b5 can itself contribute into the game, so that was a very nice move, and he was able to get a piece, and black is heavily winning. But due to some time scramble, Vaibhav was not able to keep up with that level, but later there comes a theme of pin in this position. He plays e5 and then wins the piece back. And then there's also X-ray attack that comes very soon. So I'll come to that position. After rook b5, Samay is cleverly threatening rook b6. Vaibhav finds it, he plays king e7, but after rook check, king f8, rook b5, king g7, f4, he goes wrong with king e6, giving a chance to skewer. So after rook b6 check, this is a skewer or an X-ray attack. The king has to move, and then black can just collect the rook. This is a moment in which Vaibhav resigned. So yeah, keeping an eye on CCTP often helps. Keep this in mind when you're playing. And there's another concept which I will share, is that the queen bishop battery. In this position, after queen h5, Samay Raina played queen c6. This is also a common theme in chess, which is queen bishop battery. And now the point is that g2 is a soft spot. Black can threaten mate on that line, and so Vaibhav plays rook f3 to block that diagonal, but after knight e3, b4, bishop e7, c3, queen a4, now the rook is attacked, and after bishop into e3, black first took bishop into f3 because the e3 is anyway hanging, and then after rook f1 he just picked up the queen and won the game. In fact, Samay is leading the tournament along with Joel. That's great news for Samay Raina fans. Alright, now I am coming to a game between Tanmay Bhatt and Joel. Yeah, there you go. That's Tanmay and Joel. So Joel played e4 d5. So he has Karakan in his repertoire and now also has Scandinavian, which is great. And after knight c3, d4, knight c2, knight c6, they got a decent position. Both the players had a decent position out of the opening. The moment I am coming to is this position after bishop takes f5. So here there is a chess term called as intermediate move. There's a German word for it, which is called Zwischenzug, where in a sequence of moves you change the pattern and play something else. For example, after bishop takes f5, black is expected to take rook takes f5, but here black changes the pattern of the situation and first plays d takes c3, attacking the bishop. And now black is attacking two pieces simultaneously, which ensures that he will at least pick one piece back. And after bishop takes c3, he played rook takes f5, and you can see that Joel is a pawn up, and he neatly converted that advantage into a win. This was very well converted. You see, he got all the pawns and then went on to win the game. Alright, the next game that I am coming to is Angad versus Sumit Saurav. Let me go to Angad versus Sumit. Yeah, there you go. That's Angad Singh Ranyal versus Sumit Saurav. And I'm coming to this position after bishop e7. Now, if you go to the third move after bishop c4, black went h6, and Angad could have taken advantage of this rookie move with h6 by playing pawn to d4. Now, the idea of h6 is saying to the knight or the bishop potentially to not come on g5, but in this position black can go knight f6 or bishop c5 as well. But after h6, d3 and d6, white also follows a similar strategy, plays h3 to prevent the bishop from coming to g4. But in this position, as long as your pawn is on c2, you need not really play h3, because after bishop g4, whenever black intends to go knight d4, white can always play knight d2 and protect the knight, and also push with c3, keep that knight behind. But yeah, let's go with the game. In this position, after bishop e6, take a moment to see what you would do as white. There are no checks, there are no captures, but of course you can threaten a piece and you can play pawn to d5. This is a fork by a pawn. So now in this position, after bishop h3, rook h3, knight d4, bishop d3, black played knight g4, which was again wrong. We made a Baka Mitai video on this. I really like that. And after knight d4, e d4, the piece hangs. And then after dc3, queen g7, bishop f6, the bishop is also keeping an eye on b2 and attacking the queen on g7. And after queen g4, he picked up the piece. And now in this position, after queen c8, rook c8, Angad found rook into b7, followed by bishop to a6. Now his bishop is also under attack. And after rook a8, he picked the bishop. The funny moment in this game was after rook f7, king e5. White has a very nice way to threaten checkmate in 2, and actually it's just force mate in 2. For those of you who could not watch the live broadcast, I think this is a good moment, a training moment for you. See if you can checkmate black in 2 moves. Okay, so rook b4 is the move, because after rook b4 the king is trapped. Black is not able to move anywhere. Rook f5 is also threatened, and pawn f4 is also threatened. So both these moves are mating ideas, and there is no way for Sumit to defend this. But after rook checking takes e4, the game went on, and here after king e3, black is in fact threatening mate in 1. And this is again a very useful technique that you can use in your game. As soon as your opponent plays a move, ask yourself, what is the threat? This will I guarantee you that this will avoid a lot of blunders. Rook b1 is threat, so Angad plays rook e7 check, a forcing move, and then pushes the king back. And then after king d2, he threatens his own checkmate with c3, and black had to play rook b2 and pin the pawn so that the pawn doesn't move forward, which he doesn't. And then after rook a5, there was a checkmate. That was a nice win. And let me come to another position where Sumit was playing against Angad, and Sumit had a very nice position. So some of you might be having this question, okay, we are in an advantageous position, but how do we progress? So here is a small tip for you. When you are feeling that you are ahead in a position, try to think of an elaborate plan. And when I say plan, look for pawn breaks. This can really help you in changing the game and increasing your advantage. In this position, white can increase the advantage by getting the b4 break. So white could play queen c4. For example, after knight d7, queen c4, and then let's make some null moves and play b4. And now after ba5, the rook also gets a b line, and if you take a b4, white can continue the attack with a5 on the a line. So this pawn break can be very vital. So remember, if you want to think of a plan, ask your pawns, where can I get a breakthrough? A pawn break is nothing but establishing a contact with your pawn, establishing a contact of your pawn with your opponent's pawn. So in this position, you are playing b4 to really attack the a5 pawn. So that was a very instructive moment, I thought, in this game. And then let me go to this position where Joel played against Tanmay. So let's get that. There you go, Joel versus Tanmay, and this happened in round 1. In this position, after king h1, Tanmay played rook d7. Again, a good training example for CCTP. Try to see if there are checks. There are no checks. See if there are captures. Not really, but see if there are threats. When you are seeing threats, see if you can threaten a mate or attack opponent's queen, rook, knight, bishop in that order. So in this position, after rook d7, Tanmay forgot that the rook could be in danger because the queen and rook are on the same line. It feels like as if the queen is protecting the rook, but when a bigger piece is attacked, smaller pieces fall. So after rook at d1, the queen on d4 has to move. So Joel played rook e d1. He found that threatening move with rook e d1, and once the queen moves, the rook falls, and he went on to win the game with that extra advantage. To wrap up, let me come to the last game where Angad played against Sumit. There you go. And this is a game where Sumit employed the London system and also got a very fascinating sacrifice with bishop to g6. I really like that. So this is a position. He played g6, a weakening move, and the theme here is demolishing your opponent's king side with bishop to g6, which he does very well after fg6. He then mounts the knight to g5, threatening queen takes h7, and you see that the queen comes to e7, but the queen is overloaded. The queen is protecting the rook, protecting the knight. It cannot do two duties at once, cannot perform them both. So after knight takes h7, white is getting ready for a possible discovered check. So black had to play queen g7 or queen h7, and then he went on to win the rook and then the game. So these were some of the chess terms that I thought of sharing with all of you. And if you ask me some general tips based on these games, I would say that whenever your opponent makes a move, think of what your opponent is intending to do, but also ask yourself what is the drawback of the move that your opponent has made. This can help you in finding out a plan or finding your next move or even figuring out a long elaborate plan. And it should always be with you, this CCTP acronym, whenever your opponent makes a move or when you feel that you are in a nice position. Just consider checks, capture threats and pawn breaks, and remember the MEMC approach. Just when you are about to play the move that you have chosen, try to at least expect one move from your opponent and prepare an idea against it. So I had great fun covering the comedians on board round 1 and round 2, and I shared some of my knowledge, and I hope that it was useful to you. I'd like to thank Newton School, Front Row, Mama Earth, Fast Track and Chess.com for sponsoring this wonderful event, and of course great work by Samay Rena in coming up with this event. Alright guys, do subscribe to our channel, do like the video. I'll be back with another video soon. Until then, take care, bye bye.